Hello, and in this video I want to introduce the legal concept of a trust, which is very important because trust law makes up a huge part of our English legal system. So let's start with what is a trust. Well, my understanding and explanation of a trust is this. A trust is a form of ownership, an ownership of an asset, whether it be land, chattels, stock, shares, anything. It's a form of ownership whereby the legal rights to the asset are separate and distinct from the equitable rights to the asset. Now, this is not to say that the same person X can't have legal and equitable rights. It's to say that these rights are conceptually different and have different duties, and it's made explicit that they are separate and the division is set out. So that's how I would explain what a trust is. Now, why is trust so important and why have they existed for so long? Well, an interesting way to explain this or demonstrate this is to compare it to a contractual relationship. So, if we have a trustee who has, under breach of the trust, sold the asset to another party via a contract, they've sold it. Now, the other party who's bought the asset, despite having full information of that there was beneficiaries or the property was to be held to benefit someone else, still will not be bound by the beneficiaries' interest in the asset. Now, why is this? Because of privity of contract. So a third party, i.e. the beneficiaries, cannot bring actions between the contract between the trustee and the person who's bought the property. So that's one reason why trusts have been so successful, because they are a way of regulating relationships which involve more than two parties, and it's important to have these third parties suing and bringing action in order to regulate how the property or the asset was intended to be run. Another example is that if you look at the initial contract between the settlor and the trustee, which says, oh, you must hold this property in respect of X, and the trustee again breaches the trust, well, what do we have here? The settlor can bring action against the trustee, yes, and he can claim damages, but really, who is at detriment here? It's the beneficiaries, because the property was held to benefit the beneficiaries. And the other reason is more practically, it makes sense, because when the breach occurs, who is the first to suffer loss from this breach? It's the beneficiaries, not the settlor. And therefore, who is it more economical to bring action? It's for the beneficiaries to bring action. And the final reason is that for contractual relationships, you need to have a capacity, i.e. you can't be a minor, you must not have any mental illness, difficulties, those kinds of issues. And yet, often in family contexts, we see that trusts are held for this reason, to benefit children or people who are disabled, etc. So, contracts there create a gap because those people can't enter contracts. So trust is a way of getting around this problem and regulating the asset. So they are really important. Now, how can we create a trust? There's two ways to do it. So if I say, I, Camilla Chadder, I own this phone. So how can I create a trust for this phone? Well, there's two ways. I can initially give this to you, the trustee, and I can say you are now to hold my phone for benefit of my younger sister. Let's say an example. I've created a trust. Another way of doing this is to say, yes, this is my phone, but I now declare myself the trustee and I am holding this on benefit for my sister. Now, each one have different formalities and different things involved, but essentially there's two ways. Either the settlor becomes a trustee, or the settlor gives the legal rights to the trustee and disappears from the picture altogether. So this brings us on to the next point. What are the essential elements of a trust? Well, you have firstly the three certainties must be satisfied. So those are the certainty of intention, i.e. you need to be able to say that you are certain that the settlor intended to create the trust. B, certainty of subject matter, i.e. you must be certain in what the trust property is and the quantum that each beneficiary is supposed to receive or benefit. And C, the certainty of objects, objects meaning beneficiaries, i.e. you need to know who the beneficiaries are. And these things may seem simple, but I'll do more videos in depth. They are problematic because the language is quite vague, like now when I'm talking. The second thing you need, an essential element of a trust, is the beneficiary principle, i.e. the trust must be designed to benefit. The beneficiaries must be human and identifiable. It can't just be for the benefit of some good cause. There has to be a beneficiary, because without a beneficiary, who can enforce the trust? And thirdly, another essential element of a trust is any formalities that exist, they must be fulfilled. So, for example, if we're looking at the legal rights now, and we're looking at the transfer of land, you need to have a deed and registration. Those are the formalities involved. Each right and each transfer and each relationship involves different formalities, and if you don't have this, then you don't have the essential elements of a trust. Finally, before finishing the video, because I realize this is getting long again, we look at what is the moral basis of a trust. Now, Chief Justice Coke, he said that the moral basis of trust refers to a confidence reposed in some other, and he was saying that this confidence gives rise to moral obligations. And what happens is, in law, we see that legal duties, obligations, and principles have developed following these moral principles. Now, some might say that this was important back in the day when we were establishing the trust principle, especially because trust, is a man-made construct, so the judges needed it to try and understand. But it still remains that the moral basis of a trust is still important today, because when we're trying to understand or explain or justify fiduciary duties, we must go back onto the moral obligations that give rise from a trust. I hope this video has helped. Sorry it's a bit long. Please visit my website.